Hello, everybody, and welcome to Bet99's The Parleh Show. It is Monday. It was a heck of a weekend, both in sports and personally, as I was in Ottawa at the 36 Open, hosted by our co-host on the show, Matthew Barnaby. And Matt is here with us as well as Justin Pouding in studio with me as well as always. But Barney, how are you feeling, my man, out of the gate here on Monday morning after a heck of a weekend?
I feel much better today. I'm not going to lie. Yesterday was a little foggy and disappointing after Team Pink, Team Munch, Team Mushroom comes down with a loss. Now we've hired lawyers because there could be some discrepancy in scoring with the kids' side, but I feel much better and looking forward to everyone not being in my house for another year.
Yeah, well, because of electrical issues in Quebec at the cottage, we were in Orleans, but everyone moved on the fly. It was good. We had a lot of fun. But yes, my team did win. I went 3-1 on the weekend. I thought I played quite well,
so you got your redemption for being picked number 2.
That's right. And I also I beat Barney. So that's mostly what was most important. Barney was a little shaky that day, to say the least. But doesn't matter. The business was taken care of, and I think I hit maybe the best shot of my life underneath a tree, over a tree, 7-iron to about 20 feet. So yeah, all things. Now, granted, in my defense, I think I had 12 hours of sleep every night.
You said you went to bed at 10:30 the night before.
Yeah,
which was I would think you guys be celebrating, partaking in a couple adult beverages.
Justin, I'm there to win the tournament, right?
Okay, so it was a business trip. It wasn't a pleasure.
That's right. It was a business trip. Right, Barney?
Okay.
Yeah, I got 5 out of 6 points. The only one I lost to was Rob. I lost 1 down, and he did hit an incredible shot. I thought I was going to tie it up there. But he got 10 and a half more hours sleep because we decided, let's play poker all night long until we're ready to tee off. Not a great captain I have in Munch, so we're going to have to do some
complete amateur hour move.
Tinkering.
A complete amateur hour move. Although you guys had a good time. You can't take that away from you. You had a great time. Well, over the weekend, we saw a lot of, I would say, interesting baseball from the Blue Jays. To only get 1 out of 3 games against the Cubs, Alek Manoah got sent down. We also saw in the FedEx Cup, Lucas Glover is apparently the best golfer on the planet right now. We'll talk a little bit about him a little bit later. James Harden's upset with his GM. Well, let's start with the Blue Jays, Justin. And, they got the victory there yesterday, putting up 11 runs. Dalton Varsho's bat does something, gets 5 RBIs, hits a home run. But all in all, against a Cubs team that you have to consider yourself better than, Jordan Hicks came in on Saturday, and it was 4-4. They had a nice little rally there. And then, he gives up a double, and it's 5-4. They can't get anything in the bottom of the 9th. But to lose 2 or 3, and now a game and a half up on your Mariners, but that's only because they've struggled the last 2 games. They won 8 in a row.
They're the hottest team in baseball,
the hottest team in baseball. So the Jays are lucky to still have a spot after losing 2 or 3. But what are your thoughts on the weekend that was?
Again, we talk about it almost this whole season, it seems like. The inconsistencies of the Toronto Blue Jays. Yeah. The Toronto Blue Jays they rattle off 4 straight wins. You think something's building. Okay, well, maybe we can, they were only like a half game behind Houston for the second wild card spot last week. And then you lose 3 straight. Now you're 2.5 out, right? The Toronto Blue Jays are so inconsistent, kind of like my golf game. Well, my golf game's not consistent at all. But
it's consistently inconsistent.
Consistently inconsistent, exactly. This team just can't play well or good baseball for an extended period of time. And for me, that's the biggest reason why I think at this particular time, they're not going to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
I think they're going to fall out of the playoffs because, look, they're going to win 3 games and then lose 4. They're not going to gain ground. And quite frankly, even though the Mariners lost the last 2, they're 8-2 in their last 10 games, right? They're playing very well. The Red Sox are starting to play better again. Teams that are behind them are playing their best baseball right now when it matters the most. The Toronto Blue Jays are not, right? And I think that's going to be their undoing. They cannot put together a consistent run of games, and that's the problem.
It's true, Barn.
Yeah, I'll take it from the betting perspective. I did bet them yesterday, but this is a tough team to bet because you never know what you're going to get when they step onto the field. And there was a stat yesterday just that they're right on par, right in the middle, league average in runs scored. You're not going to be a playoff team if that continues. So their biggest strength is their bats, and it's inconsistent. They fall down 2-0 in the first yesterday. They find a way to get the bats going, but you got to be consistent. You have to know what you're going to get or you won't be a playoff team. So for that, I have to agree with Justin. I just don't see it.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I'm having a hard. I think they'll probably end up in the playoffs just because. Look, you have the game and a half right now. The time is your friend, really, and because the fact that
the Mariners still have 3 games in hand though on Toronto, and they're a game and a half behind, right?
Yeah,
so,
but they're tied in the loss column, right? So they have to win all 3 games.
But the Mariners still have 3 games in hand.
They'll just tie them though.
How do we? You don't know. The Mariners could.
But if they win all those games, they'll still have the same amount of losses.
They won't control their destiny because the Mariners still have 3 games in hand. So the Mariners technically control their destiny right now. The Blue Jays, they have to figure out something. Again, it's still a long way to go, but you got to start thinking about these things because September is right around the corner, and then playoffs are going to be right there too. So if the Blue Jays want to make a run, they got to start playing consistent, and I don't think they are with that. They're an inconsistent baseball team now.
They're going to have to figure out a way to hit with runners in scoring position. That's going to be the biggest difference maker for them. You look at a team like, was it Texas, Baltimore, all these high-scoring teams. They all seem to have the same averages, the same run production, all that stuff, in normal situations. But the second there's runners in scoring position, it's like 100 points, 150 points batting average is better. And it's just crazy that the Jays haven't been able to do that. We'll see if Alek Manoah, what's his situation, if he'll be called back up. He's sent down to AAA. If it's a question of whether or not they don't want to go the 6-man rotation, I think it was a fair move to move him down out of all the guys that are there. But hopefully he figures it out for himself and for the Blue Jays. But when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit of the NHL and a little bit of the QMJHL, which is something that Barney knows quite well. That'll be it after this. Welcome back to Bet99's The Parleh Show. Rob Conway, Justin Pooney in studio in Toronto, as well as Matthew Barnaby in Ottawa. And we're going to get into a little talk some hockey, all right? Sports are coming back. It's not just going to be baseball from here on out. We got NFL, obviously NBA news, and some NHL to talk about here. But this, I don't know if it affects the NHL right away, Barney, but you're the expert here. You played in this league. You played in the league that filters into the NHL. I mean, you have an affinity towards, obviously, the idea of fighting, just the type of player that you were. And the Q has banned fighting. This has been talked about for a while. They were going to do this. And, there's some talk about whether or not the idea of watching, teenagers fight for entertainment was appropriate, and that part of it, and, of course, the healthy part of it, and concussions and all of that stuff. So it'll result in an ejection from the game. And just wanted to get your thoughts on this entire situation.
Yeah, it's not a surprise at all. And when I look back at my days in the early 90s playing in the Q, it was literally the wild, wild west. I mean, every team had 3 or 4 heavyweights. You never knew what was going to happen any night. I mean, I remember jumping in other teams' penalty boxes to fight guys. I remember fighting goalies on a nightly basis. It was absolutely insane. And because of the way that I played and the style that I played, it got me drafted into the NHL. As I went through my junior career, I scored 14 points my first year, 66 my second year, 111 my third year. But I only made the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League because I fought 13 times in 3 days at training camp. That's how I made it. So I had 252 minutes my first year, 448 my second, 476 my third. That's absolute insanity when you think of where we are today. I think it's the right move. And I don't want to sound hypocritical to people that are out there saying, oh, you've changed, or no. When you're talking about junior kids, you could have a kid that's 15. Now, granted, most kids are 16 or 17 when they come in, but you could be facing a guy that's 20 years old, and I did it. I was 148 pounds fighting 20-year-olds that were 220, 230, the likes of Sandy McCarthy and Gino Ojic, so many tough guys. And the disparity between a 16-year-old fighting a 20-year-old is enormous. When you get to the NHL, your body is sort of developed, almost fully developed where you are, and it's a little bit more fair. Even though you could be 21 fighting a guy 35, physically you're more ready for that. So, most of the kids that are playing major junior hockey aren't going to make their money playing in the NHL. That's just fact. That's just numbers. So I don't want to see these kids fighting. And as much as it helped me get there, I go to a junior game. Listen, I don't turn away when they fight, but I don't go there looking to see them fight. So I think it's the right move. I think I coached in the OHL for a couple of years. I think it was a 3-game suspension after like your third fight, something to that avail. But I don't see within 5 years there be any fighting whatsoever in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League, the Western Hockey League, or the Ontario Hockey League.
Well, the Q released the rules on Thursday. So as soon as a fight happens, the player is out of the game. A player who instigates the fight will receive a further 1-game suspension. If a player is deemed the aggressor during the fight, they'll receive a minimum 2-game suspension. And then for a player's second fight of the season, further suspension will be imposed. So, Barney, you mentioned you think within the next 5 years that fighting will be out of junior hockey, right? And we're seeing it now phase out of the NHL, of course, in a massive way. Do you ever think that there will be a time in the NHL where, I'm not saying it's going to be the same rules, but something similar where fighting is pretty much banned from the game?
I just think organically it's going to leave the game. Now, I don't think they're ever going to change the rules in the NHL unless you get like over 10 fights or whatever it may be. But, Tom Wilson's very effective, but he only does it very few times a year. Mm-hmm. But I think organically, when guys aren't trained how to fight and guys are smaller in the league, obviously the numbers are way down from when I played. And again, I like to see a good fight, but I don't turn on a hockey game to see a fight. I see Connor McDavid or Austin Matthews or Mitch Marner, any one of these guys. I turn on to see the talent, but I still enjoy a good fight in the NHL once in a while. But I just think organically, it's going to come to virtually nothing. I think it'll take a little bit longer than 5 years, but certainly with less and less fighting at the junior ranks, there's none in the NCAA. It's just organically going to leave the game. But there's always going to be, one here or there because it's a physical game. And I just don't think Gary Bettman or whoever the next commissioner is, whether it's 10 years or 15 years that come in, is going to make that call. So in the short term, we're still going to have the same game that we have, but I just think organically it's going to leave our game.
What would you say to the people, though, that believe that fighting still has a place in hockey to, the players self-police each other? We talk about the code a lot and all of that. Do you think that will still, if you remove fighting, will that allow, guys to be more dirty and then, that whole self-policing and players, taking care of themselves, that will now be gone from the game then?
I'd have to disagree with that, to be honest. It was paramount when I played that fighting be a part of the game, because those were the rules that were in place, and it's just the way that it was. I mean, I played a certain way. I was a rat out there. I wasn't a heavyweight, but the way that I played, there was repercussions for myself and guys that played my way. Because at any point, you could have your face broken, your jaw broken, your cheekbone broken, your orbital, whatever it may be. But now it's not that way. Brad Marchand can play any way he wants and be a rat. And Ryan Reeves or Tom Wilson, there's nothing he can do because the rules protect him. So he can play that way. It doesn't matter. Even if you have a tough guy in your team now and fighting's allowed, Brad Marchand can still do anything he wants. He can lick someone in the face. He can say whatever he wants out there. If he doesn't want to fight, the rules are put in place to protect him. So even as of now, with fighting allowed, there's no fear. And I'm not going to lie, there was a lot of fearful nights going into Philadelphia. There was a lot of fearful nights in going to Hartford when they had 6 heavyweights with Stu Grimston and Kelly Chase and Janssens and Kimby Daniels. Scary, scary nights. There's no fear anymore. And I'm not going to lie, I'd love to play. I'd love to be a rat in this game. It would be a lot of fun.
I guess my last comment or question for you, Barney, on this topic is, where do you draw the line? We watch the playoffs, and it's a different game. And these guys, basically, every time a goaltender stops to play, they're scrapping to some degree. Face washes and everything. Gloves stay on, sticks stay in hand, sure. Helmets stay on. But we also saw, I think it was Steven Stamkos, basically drag Austin Matthews into a fight. And who's to say that maybe not Steven Stamkos, because, he's somewhat of the same level as Austin Matthews, but maybe not a fourth liner decides to just drop his gloves and punch a star player in the face until he does the same, just to get him out of the game. And then even if that doesn't happen, if there are scrums, like how do you think that's going to play out over the first few years in the Q, and then if it ever did get to the NHL, like what's the definition of a fight for you?
Well, again, if you're dragging a guy in, he doesn't have to do anything. I think we saw with, Mitch Marner in the playoffs as well. I'm telling you, just don't respond. Now, if you're losing your fourth liner and he's trying to suck the guy in, you just have to be. And I think we're going to just see harsher penalties for the aggressor, like whether it's the 5 and suspending them, whatever it may be. But I just think it'll be harsher penalties for them. But listen, if they're going to come in, I still want my team to protect their star players. But again, Mitch Marner is not afraid to go into any arena in the NHL, whether it's playoffs or anything. And the most physical series was the last one with Vegas and Florida. But to me, it's about hitting now. It's about being physical that way, not the fighting. No one's intimidated by the fighting part of it. So I think there'll just be harsher penalties as we go through for these guys. But star players, there's no one that's fearful going into a game. Not any of the heavyweights or the middleweights, whatever they may be. I don't even think there's a heavyweight in the NHL anymore.
Yeah.
There's a lot of tough guys, but there's no true heavyweights.
For sure. Interesting. We'll have this debate as it continues. The QMJHL, as we said, banning fighting NHL. Not yet, maybe never, but as we said, maybe organically seeing it out of the game a little bit more. Coming up, though, NBA talk, James Harden, and some golf after this. All right, welcome back to Bet99's The Parleh Show. Rob Conway, Justin Pooney in Toronto, and Matthew Barnaby joining us in Ottawa. And Barney, Justin was just telling me off the air there that Pat Maroon led the league with 150 penalty minutes this year. I was wondering, how many penalty minutes, what's the most amount of penalty minutes you got in one game?
In one game, 52 in the Quebec League.
So basically you got a third of what Maroon got in the whole.
I had a feeling it was 50 plus. Like 150 is insane. You can't do that, but 50 plus, I could see that.
I just pulled up Barney's hockey.
It was a 6-game suspension that resulted. I'd be out for the year. I actually jumped over. I had a few fights and then jumped over the penalty box on the last one and really tried to break his arm while we were in the penalty box. I was trying to close the door on his arm. And then as I was getting kicked out, I grabbed the goalie and then beat the crap out of him. So it was well warranted. Warranted.
Was that the year you got 476 penalty minutes in the queue?
There you go.
It was.
Yes. More than 10% of them right there.
It was a great game, though. I can't remember if we won or lost the game.
Yeah. I'm sure that was what everyone remembered from the game, was whether the score was 5-4 or 4-3 or whatever. But
hey,
yeah.
my coach in junior hockey, Alan Shaney, if we get down at home, if we were down by like 2 goals and there was like under a minute left and there was a face-off, he'd just look at me and say, "Who do you want?" And I would grab the 5 toughest guys and we'd go on the ice and we'd have last change. We had some just unbelievable times.
Yeah. Different game now, and that goes for every sport. Yes. I mean, it goes for every sport now. Even if we're talking about the NFL and the safety that they've brought in, and the NBA, not necessarily safety because not like players get hurt as much, but still the rules are now guided towards more scoring. And one of those guys would be James Harden, and he's benefited from the rule changes 100% in the way that he's been able to get to the net in his career. And yesterday, when I was driving home from the 36 Open, all I heard on the radio was how James Harden was now going to be going to Sixers camp probably, and he wasn't being traded. And then we have some sound from James Harden as he replied to that. Oh, we don't have the sound. We're not going to play sound today, but basically he called him a liar.
He did in China.
And said, I have no interest in playing in the Sixers organization if Daryl Morey is the GM, Justin.
Yes. So as we all know, James Harden, took a bit of a haircut, last year when he was renegotiating his deal with the 76ers, and there was reports that his under the table agreement between him and Daryl Morey, who go way back to his time in Houston, both their time in Houston, that he was going to get his money back this season. It obviously didn't happen. The Sixers crashed and burned out of the playoffs once again, and Harden was front and center on that. So the Sixers decided, we're not going to offer you your full max contract and all that stuff. And then Harden called him a liar, which he probably did lie, but this is professional sports. This is a business. This is where, teams that are operating under a salary cap. Now, the NBA salary cap is much different than any other league because it's a soft cap. You can go over to keep your own players and stuff like that. But still, there are ramifications, the luxury tax and all of that. So the Sixers are doing what they want to do to put the Sixers first, right? Teams will trade you no matter what. Teams will do this. Now players are doing the same thing. Damian Lillard, right? He has said, I don't want to play in Portland anymore. I want to be in Miami. That is the name of the game in the NBA now, where it's basically, I don't want to be here no more. Well, then trade me, right? And then teams trade him. And now the Sixers saying, no, we're not going to trade you. You opted into your deal. You have to play, right? Or you sit out and forfeit the year. Right? Ben Simmons did the same thing. He sat out for an extended period of time, lost a whole bunch of money, and then finally got traded. Yes, Daryl Morey probably did lie to James Harden. Masai Ujiri lied to DeMar DeRozan. Said he wasn't going to trade him. The next week, trade him to San Antonio for Kawhi Leonard. Yeah. It's professional sports. That happens.
I don't disagree with you. I guess my only rebuttal to that is, does that, and Barney, you can answer this maybe, but does that not injure your reputation as management, and perhaps players are not interested in what you have to say when you're a free agent or you're looking at re-signing because you know that this guy doesn't always tell the truth, or that, sure, he says one thing now, but if I don't play up to expectations, then the other side is not going to come through with what we agreed to.
I think this is a bad precedent for the 76ers. This can only hurt you when you look at everyone's going to lie in this business, but when you start telling guys, or hey, can you take less money? I think it was $15 million less that he opted out, and then he opted back in for this year. When you start having that relationship with a player and asking him to do something to help your team, and then you go against your word, I mean, this is not good business. This is not. I'm not a James Harden fan at all. I would never trade for James Harden one iota. Zero chance would I bring him on my team. But certainly this is over money, and he was lied to. And again, I can bring it back to Aaron Rodgers. I'm sure he took a lot less money, but I'm also guaranteeing that there was something else said, like we're going to get these players, or we're going to spend the money elsewhere. And then, hey, maybe I'll take a third year and come back a third year and play and make some of that money back. When you start lying to star players, that's just career suicide. I mean, because it's going to get out. James Harden is telling everyone when he calls him a liar, because this just does not happen. So, yeah, everyone does lie in the business, but when it's about money and taking less to help the team, then you go back on your word. It's a lot bigger than saying, hey, we won't trade you, and then trading you. This is just horrible business.
Well, yeah, it's reported that Daryl Morey is unmoved by these comments by James Harden, that he still is not going to trade him. And I think when you look at this situation with the Philadelphia 76ers, you also got to think about Joel Embiid, because he just won the MVP.
Yeah.
He's the guy the Philadelphia 76ers are building around, but you have to make sure that you, like Barney mentioned, the reputation amongst stars in the NBA, they all talk, they all know what organizations are going on. That's why you see stars go to the same teams pretty much, right? Because their reputation supersedes what the team puts out there. But when I look at this James Harden situation, he knows that he's damaged goods. Not damaged goods per se, but he knows that no team really made a trade offer for him. He wanted to go to the Clippers. The Clippers had very minimal interest in it. And now he's going out there and doing what he did in Houston. Remember, in Houston, he gained all that weight, became a problem when he requested a trade, and eventually it happened. So James Harden, has a position in this too. He's making it well known and making it very, very put out there that he's disgruntled, does not want to play in Philadelphia anymore, and he's basically tanking his value. So everybody knows he wants out, and he will not. And the Sixers are put in a corner where they have to trade him.
Yeah, and like you said with Joel Embiid too, eventually you just say, I don't want to be a part of this drama. Either he goes or I go, and I'm not interested. I want to win championships. I want to win basketball games, and I'm the best player here. I'm the one who's supposed to be the most important narrative, and it's not happening right now for them, and we'll see how it all breaks down. It's just interesting, the NBA constantly with players just having all the control. I think it's great for them, and Barney, you being a former player, it is great. We see the NFL, which we'll talk about next, and it's just the guys can't get a contract because they did.
Well, running backs
you know
can't
what
get
I
a
mean?
contract.
Like it's craziness. But there's just drama all the time in the NBA.
Yeah, my wife loves the NBA, like just following it on Twitter and social media and who's sleeping with whose mother. I mean, it's just absolutely insane. Every day there's something in the news that someone's disgruntled or something's happening. There's always drama in the NBA, and it's for entertainment. It's the closest thing we have to the WWE, which I don't follow, but that's scripted. This one isn't actually scripted. This is much more entertaining than a scripted plot. The NHL is just so boring. These guys don't do anything wrong. I mean, we don't see any of this in the NHL. We need more of this.
Yeah,
we need
it is
more.
Entertaining. It is entertaining.
More
Can you imagine McDavid saying, "I'm not playing at Edmonton" and whatever, and just sits?
Kenny Holland's a liar, and
Kenny Holland's a liar. Austin Matthews comes out and says, "I will not play for Sheldon Keefe anymore." It's either me or you got to fire Sheldon Keefe. Like, imagine, like it would be groundbreaking if that ever happened.
I would love it. It would be great. It would be awesome. All right, we want to talk a little golf. I thought the hottest golfer in the world was me this weekend, going 3-1 and winning our 36 Open. But really, it is Lucas Glover. Barney, he wins his second title in 2 weeks. Looked shaky there down the stretch, and got into a playoff with Patrick Cantlay. Managed to close the deal. I think the biggest thing here, other than of course Lucas Glover making a lot of money, moving up to fourth in the FedEx Cup, and good little resurgence to his career, is we talked about it. It's the Ryder Cup. And he's moved up another 19 spots. He's 16th now on the list, just behind Justin Thomas. And, I joked off air. I'm like, yeah, well, he almost chipped in to shoot 5 under or something like that and become top 70th. Meanwhile, Glover's got 2 titles in a row. And you only need to play good for 1 weekend when you're at the Ryder Cup, 3 days. Do you think this is going to give Zach Johnson a little pause for thought? Not even with Justin Thomas. There's other guys to pick. But 16th now on the list, 2 straight wins. What are your thoughts? Would you take Glover, Barney?
Wow. Yeah, I mean, he's playing great. And we all know just from playing amateur golf, when you feel good and you feel confident in anything, you're just on a different level. So I'm taking him over Justin Thomas. If it was a pick between him and Justin Thomas right now, I'm taking the more confident golfer, the guy that's having success right now, because his confidence is so high. Now, he's never been on that stage of the Ryder Cup and being a rookie and never being there. That's cause for thought. But is it giving Zach Johnson a pause and what he's going to do? It certainly opened his eyes, because 2 straight wins, I don't care where you are, is pretty damn impressive with the field that he's playing against.
It is. It's just weird, man. Like, you have a guy who, for like 5 years, has been nothing. Like, look, I'm not saying he's not missing constant cuts or anything like that, but 10 years ago, Lucas Glover was a fixture on leaderboards, and golf is one of those sports where you can get that resurgence. You're just playing well. We saw it with Stewie Sink a couple years ago. He won like 3 times on tour. It's a different world than we see in other sports, but when you're talking about what you mentioned, Barney, and the idea of the level of pressure that you're going to feel at that Ryder Cup, Lucas Glover, I'm sure he's played in a Walker Cup or something along those lines, but he's not going to have experienced the same amount of pressure, different type of pressure. We'll talk more about whether or not Justin Thomas deserves to be on that list, and we have a couple more tournaments to go. We have the BMW and the Tour Championship that could really stick a wrench in Zach Johnson's plans, because he already has Wyndham Clark and now Brian Harman, 2 guys you would not have expected to be on that team, and they're auto-qualifying right now. So who knows? If someone else comes up with another couple good weeks or Lucas Glover wins again, they might be in that top 6 as well. But we'll talk NFL coming up next. All right, welcome back to Bet99's The Parleh Show. Justin Pooney and Matthew Barnaby in Ottawa. We're going to talk Big Ten realignment. No, not really. But we were talking about it because the AP Top 25 has just been released, and Justin was giving me the breakdown. And the number 1 team, not surprisingly here, is Georgia. Looking for a three-peat. Michigan, Ohio State, Alabama, and LSU round out the top 5. And my Iowa Hawkeyes, they're 25th. They're on the board, baby. They hit the board, but we were talking jokingly about the realignment, and there's going to be a lot of realignment in college football coming up, with the SEC adding teams and the Pac-12 basically done, and the Big 12 adding some teams, the Big 10. So we were talking about who would be in the Western division of the the Big Ten, and it would be like Iowa, Minnesota, kind of like you cut it down the middle. But then the 4 teams from the West Coast that are going to be in there, it's going to be crazy. That's still a couple years away. But real quick, guys, what do you think about the top 5? I'm a little surprised to see LSU up that high.
No, they finished pretty good last year under Brian Kelly. And if LSU's in college football, right? There's a few schools that recruit better than anybody else.
Sure.
Right? You got your Georgia, you got your Bama, Ohio State, and LSU. Those 4 teams will always have top recruiting classes because they're just, for whatever reasons being money too, but they have the best recruiting classes. And I think, then you got a team like Michigan who is really good, but they're never going to recruit the same quality of players as Ohio State. But the reason why Michigan is so high is because they're returning so many important pieces from last year's team. And, this could be Jim Harbaugh's last year. We keep on saying that.
He might not even coach the first 4 games.
Yeah, he might. Well, I know he is going to coach the first 4 games.
Now because they do the thing.
Yeah,
maybe it might come back. Who knows?
Who knows? But I think, look, this year in the Big Ten is going to be very interesting because next year it's going to get a whole lot wilder when you add those 4 West Coast teams. It's going to be way more exciting. And I can't wait for that. I cannot wait for that. Next year, 2024 season of college football is going to be way, way more exciting.
Yeah, I think Barney, is this fair for the USC and the UCLA volleyball teams? No, it's not. It's really not. It's not fair for what they need to do when they go to school, which is to focus on school and play volleyball at the same time. Do they need to be flying to Nebraska, to play volleyball games? No, but it's about money, and which is why I don't understand. And maybe we're getting a little bit closer to this, guys. But Barney, I'll get your thoughts on it. Are we not a few years away from just having the AFC and NFC of college football, and that's it? And we're just doing away for football. We're doing away with conferences. You might as well at this point, right?
Yeah, probably.
And just separate the 2 sports, or that sport and everybody else. There's no other sport that even comes. Basketball, is a solid second, but it's nowhere near one.
No,
Barney.
It's massive money. I mean, Texas Longhorns have their own TV network. I mean, there's so much money involved in college football. It's absolutely ridiculous. And there's 3 teams: Ohio State, Alabama, and Georgia. There's a reason why the top recruits go there, because of the coaching, because of the track record of getting players to the NFL. And that's what it's about. They don't care about school one bit. And a lot of times I don't even know how a lot of these players clear clearinghouse. I mean, it's unbelievable, but it's about money. And those 3 schools predominantly put the top players in the first round, and they graduate onto the NFL and they make millions of dollars. So about them, they don't care about the school. They care about where they're going to go and be coached by some of the best in getting these guys to the next level. That's what it's all about. And that's not
1,000%.
So you're always going to see those 3 schools, and then you're going to mix in a Michigan because a kid wants to go there, or whatever it may be, or LSU, or they don't want to go to a certain school because now they got to play behind 3 other quarterbacks that are top 3 in the recruiting class. So it's very, very tough to recruit against those 3 schools.
It is, and you look at it, it comes down. We talk about money, right? Why do you think these 4 schools, 4 that went into the Big Ten, but then also the school, Colorado, Utah, Arizona State are going to the Big 12 because of money, right? These schools are going to get $70 to $80 million a year being in the Big 10, the Big 12. Texas and Oklahoma are moving to the SEC because of money. They're going to get way more money. In Texas, we know, is Texas and Oklahoma are both flushed with cash because of football. And to your original point, Rob, about the other sports, football pays the bills for the entire university.
That's fine. That's
right?
fine.
They
There's
pay
no
the bills.
argument there. But the point is, those other student athletes exist.
But those programs would only exist because of college football.
No, that's not true. They still would play sports there. They just wouldn't be able to fly commercial.
But they wouldn't be able
they'd
to
have to find the only teams that are in their area so they could take a bus maybe because they couldn't afford the
they
flights.
Wouldn't be able to afford
but they're still going to play.
Yeah, but
I played intramural sports in university. We all played. It just means it wouldn't be the same thing.
Intramural sports
they wouldn't be sponsored by Nike. They wouldn't be done all those things. Sure, but that's like those programs wouldn't exist. The point is the football does pay all those bills, and that's great, but that doesn't mean at the detriment of everybody else.
It does.
They should, but they can just make it its own entity. It is anyways. It is their own thing.
But the thing is, it's attached to the school, right? You have boosters, you have alumni that donate, you all of this stuff that people in the States have such pride when it comes to their alumni and playing in these games and it's bragging rights. Even if you didn't even touch, even if you're a finance person, you don't even belong on a football field. You have a vested interest in your alma mater's football program, right? Against rivals because it creates bragging rights, right?
Sure.
And football, because college football is the closest thing. It's a major sport. Let's face it. It's a professional sports league, right? It's bigger than the NBA, bigger than the NHL, bigger than baseball, right?
In the United States,
right?
100%,
In the United States, next to the NFL, it's the biggest entity there, right? So they can pay the bill if I'm Alabama and their athletic director, and my school sells out Tuscaloosa every weekend. We get all this revenue, all of that. The basketball team is now good at Alabama.
Yeah.
Why? Because they can get higher recruits, because football brings in more money. So it raises the stock up to the whole school.
But Rob, I understand what you're saying, and you're not wrong. Like, you're not wrong that it is at the detriment of the other student athletes. The fact is they don't care because of the money that is involved.
Of course.
Everything goes by them. And for myself, NFL is number 1 for me, PGA is number 2, and college football is number 3. That's how I rank my professional sports. Because, yes, it is a professional sport.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It is. And I'm glad that they're getting the money, the NIL and all that stuff. I think it's great. That's was ridiculous that these, athletes were just being, used for the millions of dollars. So it's the fact that, Nick Saban, didn't you tell me he just bought a place in, he's going to be neighbors with Tom Brady or something?
Jupiter, Florida, yeah.
He's going to Jupiter, Florida. He's the coach, and yet the kids that are on the field can't even make any money. Was ridiculous. So I'm happy about all that. But I just there doesn't need to be this wherever the football team goes, everyone else has to go too. You can still go, but then they can separate too. I think. I also never went to school in the United States, so I have no idea how that affects. Like, if you grew up being a fan of, like, I grew up being a fan of the Big East basketball tournament. Well, none of them are even in the Big East anymore.
The Big East is back now.
No, it exists, but those teams like Syracuse is not in it anymore. Like, so it just, I don't know. It's just, maybe that history gets lost, and that's why they don't want to do it. But if all the teams are moving around everywhere anyway, who cares? That's my opinion.
Money talks. That's it.
Oh, that's 100% true. All right. Well, speaking of which, we were going to talk about the NFL before we got that breaking news of Iowa being number 25 in the AP Top 25. That was the lead of that discussion. So look. Was it week 2 now done in the NFL? Week 1 only?
That was week 1,
okay,
yeah.
week 1 only. And we've had a few things, like apparently, Jonathan Taylor's going to report back. But on the field, Justin, what have you seen out of maybe a guy like Derek Carr, or maybe whatever it might be? What has been the biggest surprise?
Yeah. There's a few things, and I want to get your thoughts on this too, Barney. Trey Lance, he was sacked 4 times. Now, again, he was playing behind the second-string offensive line, and the Raiders, it was a preseason game against the Raiders. We don't expect to be, world beaters. We expect the Raiders to finish 4th in the AFC West, but is it time that we just say that Trey Lance is a bust and that he's never going to amount to anything in the NFL? Because he's not going to win the starting job in San Fran. That's Brock Purdy's now, and it doesn't look like anybody would want to, What could you get for Trey Lance on the trade market? A 5th-round pick, maybe? So, Barney, is it time that we just say that Trey Lance is a bust, or is there still some hope that he could turn it around, whether it's in San Fran or elsewhere?
I think he's a bust, guys, and his QB rating was 110 in that game. Now, very fortuitous. I mean, he was 10 for 15, I think 123 yards, interception, touchdown. And yes, he didn't have the protection that he needed, but a lot of the reads were terrible. The one touchdown should have been an interception, and it got through the hands of the safety, or it just was a lucky play. So I'm all out. I'm more in on Zach Wilson and seeing his progressions, even though he's going to be sitting on the sidelines for a couple of years. But Brock Purdy's the man for them. They got no more Garoppolo there. Trey Lance, like I said, you're going to get a 5th-round pick, 4th round, 6th round. Like, you're not getting much for Trey Lance right now, especially after watching him in that game yesterday. So it's tough. It's tough to be a quarterback, a rookie quarterback. You can look at Anthony Richardson too, and his play in week 1. Bryce Young against the Jets, who beat them 27-0. That was a tough night, and he didn't have the protection that he needed. So it's really tough being a rookie quarterback. I know it's not his first year, but essentially he'd be a rookie in the NFL. It's the toughest thing in professional sports.
Nathan Rourke didn't look that bad for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Looked pretty good against the Dallas Cowboys as he's trying to solidify a spot.
What was that? Is that just like is that just exhibition football? And like they didn't tackle him? That was insane.
Yeah,
There's 17 guys on top of him, and then he somehow walked out of there. It was crazy. It was unbelievable. They played it at BC Place. Is it still BC Place?
Yes.
Yeah. They played it there, and Patrick Mahomes tweeted out that it was nasty. I mean, good for that's great.
Yeah, look, he's probably going to be the backup quarterback for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and it's good for Canada having a Canadian be a backup quarterback. It's a fairly prominent position in case anything ever happens to Trevor Lawrence, right? He's going to be
left
the guy.
The CFL to be the backup,
Yes.
so that it's not bad. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a step up for sure. I mean,
absolutely.
Pay-wise, everything-wise, I mean, it was awesome. Listen, if that I'm not saying it can't happen in the regular season, but certainly in preseason, you're playing second and third string players. So they aren't as good, and a lot of those guys won't even be in the opening roster, the 53-man roster.
Yeah, and I was kind of leaning towards, too, like you don't really want to hurt yourself or others during the game. It's not quite the Pro Bowl or anything, but, they're still fighting for jobs. But, yeah, I was just wild because he disappeared off the screen 3 times.
Russell Wilson got hit like 4 times in that game yesterday.
Yeah, that brought me a lot of
4 times he got hit. I was like, wow, pull this guy out. I understand you want to get him some confidence here, but he got hit like 4 times pretty good.
Yeah, he fumbled the ball too. I think he had a fumble as well. Derek Carr looked pretty good though. I was impressed with what I saw from Derek Carr and the Saints. I think I have them as the best team in the division. I think we talked about it last week, didn't we? What the Saints?
We did,
right?
Yeah.
I think what I saw from Derek Carr, look, he's a guy who is a fringe top 10 quarterback, the same likes of Kirk Cousins, Dak Prescott in that kind of realm.
I agree. Yeah.
I like what I saw from Derek Carr. I thought he played very well, and I think the Saints might have something with Derek Carr. Did you agree with me and Barney on that, or do you think it's Derek Carr though?
No, I like Derek Carr. I think I think Kirk Cousins is a step above Derek Carr, and I have him in like Jimmy Garoppolo in that kind of that realm.
Jimmy Garoppolo. No.
Jimmy Garoppolo isn't a bad quarterback. He's not a bad quarterback. Like,
okay, sure. Go ahead. We got 1 minute. Go ahead. I'll let you finish.
Yeah, I have them in the same realm. I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo signed for $97 million after being cut or let go by San Fran. Derek Carr's a good quarterback. He's not a great quarterback. I don't have him top 10, but around 12 to 15, anywhere in that range. He's a good quarterback. So he's gonna do some good things, and he's gonna make some bonehead decisions once in a while, and you have to live with it.
You look good doing it, though. He will look good doing it.
He's a good-looking dude.
That's for sure. We'll talk about we got to take a quick break here. We only have 30 seconds left. We want to talk about Garrett Wilson as he trolls Sean Payton. So we'll get that on the other side, but we will also get to the other side. Now, I was away a couple of days. The Parleh's coming up. Do I have any updates? Are we have any wins? Or
I totally forgot now.
You forgot about it. Okay, well, we'll figure that out. Regardless, us three, we're going to put something nice together, real juicy, and we're going to have a parlay for you after this as well. We'll find out what Garrett Wilson thinks about Sean Payton on Bet99's The Parleh Show. All right, welcome back to Bet99's The Parleh Show, and just going to throw this up here real quick. We have the Garrett Wilson thing.
Trolling Sean Payton. As the plot thickens between Barney's Jets and and the Denver Broncos, it was kind of funny to me when I saw this that, Sean Payton put out in a press conference earlier that once you're done playing, you have to, you can't have your uniforms off. Mm-hmm. You can't wear sunglasses. You can't wear a bucket hat. And you can't do any interviews during the game. Well, Garrett Wilson coincidentally did all of that in the Jets preseason game against the Panthers. And I thought that was kind of funny. I don't know if it was a coincidence or he knows what he was doing to throw shade. So I thought that was kind of funny.
I like it, Barney.
I love it. I absolutely love it. They're standing up for their coach, and I love the troll. It's right up my alley. There's nothing I wouldn't have done that wasn't Garrett Wilson. He's got the bucket hat on, the shades, and doing an interview, not even watching the game. This guy's a stud, and I love him even more. Suck on that, Sean Payton.
I think got sleeper fantasy value as well. I'm looking forward to maybe grabbing him now that he's paired up with Aaron Rodgers. Has an opportunity to take a big leap this year for Jets, Jets. All right, let's get into the parlay. Now, warning, Barney, we can both pick like a minus 500 pick because Justin went off the board with his selection.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's Monday. Thought we, juice it up a little bit on a Monday. Premier League action. Manchester United taking on Wolverhampton. I'm going to go the correct score method, and I'm going to take United to win 1-0. I just think United's gonna, they're much better than the Wolves. I don't think the Wolves are gonna score. But I think United, they get off to a slow start. They get a mid-game goal, and then they kind of just coast away to the end. So United wins 1-0 at plus 650.
Plus 650, Barney, as the Man United parks the bus up 1-0 for the rest of the game. What do you got?
Man, I wish I would have known that before I made my selection. I could tell you, just to try to help the team out. I got the Astros minus 150 over the Marlins, and I'm going to be watching that soccer game just to see if we can cash in and make some cash.
All right. I was going to take them as well, so I'm going to jump over to the Rangers at minus 180 with Maxwell Scherzer on the mound. That's what his real name is on the website. So plus 1,870. I like it. $100 gets you $1,870. Barney, we will see you tomorrow. Justin, you as well. We'll be rocking and rolling. We got a big week coming up as well with the UFC. Lots of things going on, so we'll be talking about that tomorrow. But for now, for Rob, Justin, and Matt, this has been Bet99's The Parleh Show.